buildings behind me were the headquarters for the World War II Office of Strategic Services. It was here that the first halting steps toward mind control began.
So 10 years before Stanley Kubrick made The Shining, he made another film. It was a film about mind control called A Clockwork Orange.
The Shining is one movie that has really been put through the ringer, and one thing that people really don't notice, that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
All during the shoot, Kubrick is rewriting the movie.
What we see here is Stanley Kubrick trying to encode a secret meaning into The Shining that he doesn't want anyone to know about.
Kubrick has several references to Freemasonry in his films.
There's a lady that walks past that has a bloody handprint on her ass.
The Shining is Kubrick's 11th film, and there's 11s all through the film. 11 is a special number in occult theology.
The Shining has been regarded as one of the greatest horror films ever made. But is it really a horror film?
The Shining also is loaded with sexual innuendo.
The family is isolated up at the Overlook, which is a perfect opportunity for some sort of CIA experimentation to go down up there.
Using MK-Ultra methods, psychiatrically control assassins. Literally assassins.
Experimental drugs, including LSD, were administered to human guinea pigs. The patients were never told that their treatment was part of a CIA experiment.
And there is this story which involves him spiking the drinks of one of his deputies, this guy Frank Olson, and he jumped out of a window to his death.
It's a demonic possession, you know, so it makes someone feel like they don't have any control over this etherical entity outside themselves, when really it's the people who are imposing the trauma that need to be held accountable for the actions.
Mr. Thomas.
We know what happened in the apartment that they had.
There are many clues that point to the fact that this theory of what The Shining is really about is the correct theory.
We think that we're watching a horror movie where ghosts are kind of forcing a man to go off and kill his family. But what are we really watching here?
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Wendy, I'm home.
And welcome back to another Raised by Giants discussion. We are live. Welcome everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys and any channel moderators or channel members out there today. We have a very exciting show for you guys here this evening with first-time guest, a good friend, Steven from BG Cast. Going to be kicking it old school here today with Steven. But a quick reminder that my documentary, A Clockwork Shining, which you just saw the trailer for, will be released at the end of the month on Amazon Prime. Fingers crossed. I really hope everyone watches it when it gets released. Supporting independent filmmakers is very important, and that's where things are headed, guys. Hollywood is dead, all right? It's independent people that are self-funding their own film. And I will keep everyone updated exactly when that drops, and I'm really excited about it. It's one of the best things that I have ever put together and have ever been a part of. Really excited for you guys to see it. And if you guys could also do me a favor, please, and if you could go to Amazon Prime and type in A Clockwork Shining. You won't see the movie yet because it's not up. It's been accepted and it's in the queue to be released. But when you type in A Clockwork Shining, it will trigger the Amazon algorithms. Everything's about algorithms these days. That there's a lot of interest in the film, and Amazon will push that out faster. You know, just if you could, and if you got time throughout the day or when the show is over, just go to Amazon Prime and type in A Clockwork Shining. That's all you got to put. Just put A Clockwork Shining in there. The movie isn't there yet, but it will help push the movie out faster than what is expected, and you guys will be able to see it faster that way. So thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it. So without further ado, we have with us this evening we've become pretty good friends over the past year or so. I've been on his show a few times, and now he's on mine. Steven from BG Cast. It's good to see you, my friend. How are things going?
Hey, what's going on, Ryder? Thanks for having me on. It's nice to be on your show for a change, man. This is a cool opportunity.
Yeah, man. I was on your show a couple of times, and I was like, "Hey, dude, we need to get this guy over here, see what's going on." And it's so interesting, Steven, is like I started my show with spirituality, mostly spiritual topics, but I started getting like labeled a new ager or something like that. People just lumped me into this category of new ageism, and I even had guests that wouldn't come on my show because that's when I pitched them like in the beginning. I was like, hey, this is a show about spirituality. We're going to be talking about spirituality here. And they were like, no, I'm not coming on your show. And I'm like, what do you mean? They would just like kind of shut me out, because I think that they might have thought that it was like some kind of a new age cult or something. I don't even know because, which the new age really does seem like a cult.
I would agree.
Nowadays, it's really just been replaced with mainstream religion, and that's what these people cling to. Like the people that are disillusioned with mainstream religion, they kind of find a home in the New Age community, which is just really a carbon copy of Christianity. It's the exact same values are carried over, just in a different form, and just tiny bit switched up, and the meanings have changed to mean something different when the basis and the foundation is really all the same. But can you let the audience know what you do and your background and what got you into this this realm of doing your show?
Well, man, that's one thing I can completely agree with you on is there's a connotation when, you have people who talk about certain esoteric concepts and topics, and immediately kind of goes over to the new age label. It does. It's kind of funny. I've always joked, I call myself kind of old age, and it's just what I call myself when it comes to talking about this stuff, but nonetheless, I actually embarked on my evolution, we'll call it, in 2008 at the young age of 20 years old. It kind of started in three different ways. The first way was, kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight was, health and fitness. That kind of first opened the door for me. I had struggled with my weight, throughout most of my young adult life. And, by the time I was 20 years old, I decided that, I was going to do something about it, and I was going to do something about it the right way. And that kind of led me down a lot of different interesting doors. And, one of the biggest questions I started asking myself at that time is, so let me get this straight. All the organic food and the healthy food that you're supposed to be eating, that's supposed to be good for you, is hella expensive and barely affordable for the common person. But you look at all of this cheap food that they say you're not supposed to be eating, that's chock full of chemicals, dyes, preservatives, everything like that. It's hella cheap and really affordable for everybody. So that always kind of, made the light bulb go off in my brain, made me kind of think, what's going on with this. At the same time, too, like, so you were talking about religion earlier. I grew up in the middle of the schism. My mom's side of the family is Roman Catholic. My dad's side of the family is Greek Orthodox. So I literally grew up in the middle of the schism. I'm not joking when I say that. And, I always had a belief that there was some kind of spiritual aspect to this reality. I always felt that modern religions and organized religions had it wrong, but I did think there was something there, and that's where I kind of started uncovering things like Taoism, Buddhism, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, things like that. A lot of different spiritual philosophies that kind of take into account the gray in this world. They're not super black and white. And then it was also funny because back in 2008 was the time of the recession. And, young 20-year-old me, I'm like, man, like I should learn how our financial system works. Like I should learn this, because I'm an adult now. Like I should know this kind of stuff, So why is it always so fucked up? And I go ahead and I start doing some research, and I find out, well, no wonder why it's fucked up. We have no physical assets backing our currency, and it's just it's loaned out to us out of thin air with interest. So yeah, that could definitely be it. But that started the evolution, man. I don't like calling it a path because it does not have a definite ending point. You will always come back to things you might have looked at like 2-3 years ago. I mean, it might be 2-3 years before you come back and look at it again. But at that time, you have a fresh perspective. You've grown a little bit, in the way that you think, in your perspective and your perception and all of that. So, and then honestly, man, the show for BG Cast first came into being in 2020. It had a very small stint because, that incident was going down. And I had kind of looked at a lot of what I've talked about for the past 12 years at that point, starting to kind of come into fruition. So that was kind of a little bit of a fire under my ass at that point. So I started the show. It didn't really get anywhere at that point in time, but then I revamped it back in 2022. One of my first guests ever on the show was, if you guys know Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers. He was one of my first guests on the show, and then got up with Chris and you guys, and that's all she wrote, man. Here I am doing the thing and looking to take it to the next level like you guys.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about organic food, because that always hit a little nerve with me. Like, just the fact that in grocery stores that there's an organic section that you can pick from and buy tells you everything that you need to know. Like, what is the other garbage then? But that was just a really quick point that I wanted to make there. What has been your experience through working with, because in the beginning, like I said, I started my show in 2020 as well. It's been going for 4 years now. So, but what has been your experience with spiritual people within this spirituality community? Because what I really realize, and why I kind of shifted gears from that, is because a lot of these people are just full of shit, and they say a bunch of things and they don't actually practice them. And that's another issue, is that people, they want the shortcut, right? They want the thing that is going to, like a magic pill or a magic hat that's just going to come out of nowhere and then automatically change their lives forever. But that's not the way that anything works. Me and you have talked before about, like breath work and like meditation. Like, you just can't sit down and lay down and do a little bit of meditation and expect your entire life to change. That's not the way that it works. You have to keep doing it every single day. And we were talking a little bit about DMT earlier, and you were mentioning how, you can unlock natural DMT in your brain, and you can, because I've come really, really close. Well, I think I've unlocked the benzodiazepine, the natural benzodiazepine, because that is also a real thing. When you do it at a certain time of night and you do the right breathing exercise, you can literally completely relax your body, like you've taken a benzo. It's just natural. And it took me a really long time to get to that point. I told you that it took me 3 months of doing breath work every single day and doing meditation every single day. There was no breaks in between all that to even get to the point to where I felt like that I could I was on the cusp of getting outside of my body, getting outside of the into the astral realm. It took me that long, and that was the only time that I had experienced it or even come close. And a lot of these gurus and a lot of these people, for the lack of the better word, they want you to pay them to have you take a course that you don't really even learn anything out of, because it's like the contactee community. Like, a lot of the people that are claimed to be in contact with extraterrestrials and ETs and channel ETs and extraterrestrials, they'll give you a course. I'll take my course for $444 and I'll teach you how to do this, blah 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 blah. I've never
or they'll
seen.
channel the Ashtar command for you for $500. That also.
And I'll put a caveat on that. I do know one person that I legitimately trust that does do really good healing work remotely, and what he channels, I actually do believe. But that's
Okay.
besides the
Oh,
point.
yeah.
A lot of these people, I've never heard one case of an individual taking a remote viewing course and being
Mhm.
able to remote view after the course is over. I've never heard of one person taking an extraterrestrial contactee course and being contacted by aliens at the end of that course. I've never seen someone take a psychic medium course and then was able to contact the dead. So what's going on here?
Well, man, just like you, I have my gripes. I call them the conscious community, and that's what I've labeled it as of now. Even though I'm not a huge fan of labels, but for the sake of it making sense, that's what we're going with at this point in time. Yes, man, we got a lot of talk and no walk. That is the number one thing I can totally agree with you on. I can't tell you how many spiritual podcasters, dude, that I listen to. They'll be talking about the fourth way. They'll be talking about Kundalini awakenings. They'll be talking about self-remembrance, things like that, but not a single one of these people are actually putting it into practice. And that's where I at least try to come along and I try to change that. But you're absolutely right, man. This, like you were saying with breath work and you were saying with meditation, I think one thing as a society that we are very tied to is something called the instant gratification factor. It's what we've been conditioned to, accept as progress or to accept as reward. There's a dopamine response that is correlated in the brain with the instant gratification factor. And that's really where it kind of comes from, man, is a lot of people, just like you said, they want to sit down and meditate for a month tops. And then after that, they're like, oh, I didn't experience anything. And I'm like, that's not the point. That's like, you need to keep going and mastering it. And, and the other big thing, a lot of the spiritual community likes to, they describe meditation all wrong. And that's something that it grinds my gears a little bit, because meditation is not just quieting your mind. You will get there. Don't get me wrong. But what it is, in truthfulness, at least in my opinion, is you're watching your thoughts pass by objectively, and you're not attaching yourself to any of those thoughts. It's just like you're sitting there, and looking at a stream in the mountains, and you see this leaf pass down the stream. That's your thought. Are you reaching out and grabbing the leaf? No. Are you doing anything to disrupt the flow of the leaf? No. You're watching it pass by. And, that is essentially what meditation is in the beginning. And then, yes, eventually what will happen is, as you get good at objectively watching your thoughts pass by and not attaching yourself to them, then you will quiet your mind. It's kind of like a step-by-step process. But again, I'll digress. Like I was saying, man, a lot of it's instant gratification factor, and a lot of it has become a fad. It's not really a way of life. It's not, that's the one thing I'll say is I try to live that way of life the best I can. I'm very Eastern in the way I live and my philosophy. Like, I get up, train, do my rites every morning, things like that, kind of clean up, my space, steward my space, like, meditate, like, it's a whole different process when you actually attempt to live the life, and you attempt to actually do the healing, kind of what we're talking about tonight. The other thing about a lot of these spiritual communities, a lot of them are just very unhealed, and one of the biggest premises in the spiritual community is, we have to step into a new way of being. We have to step into a new way of life. That's kind of what we need to do in order to kind of achieve what we're looking for, or to, live that more spiritually sound existence that, I like this guy said, meditation always gives me homework to do. And the assignments get harder every time. That's a good one. Fireflies in the Lighthouse. I like that. And yes, that happens to me as well. But I'll digress. A lot of people don't want to do the inner work. A lot of people don't want to heal themselves, man. It takes true bravery to go within yourself and open up that closet full of skeletons, man. And you might open that door and you might like look up and you might see that these skeletons are piled fucking high, dude. And that's quite a lot of skeletons in there. And that's going to take years to work through, excuse me. Same thing with your demons. I look at demons as part of the ego self. They can manifest themselves outwardly. Don't get me wrong, but demons are part of the egoic self. And it takes bravery to sit down with your demons and to put them in their place and to, try to gain an understanding for those aspects of yourself. And the spiritual community doesn't like doing that, man. They're all about the love and the light. They're about bypassing, at least at this point in time. Now, that's not everyone. There are some people who are actually doing the work, and I've kind of started to shift gears with my show a little bit too. I mean, even though I talk about spiritual topics, I'm having a political guest on tomorrow night. I'm trying to expand my horizons as well, because at the same time, you can only beat the horse dead so much. I've constantly tried to relay this message to a lot of my listeners that, we need to be doing the work. We need to be walking the walk, not just talking the talk, and we need to start putting a lot of this into practice and in training, man. And, people have just become so hypnotized by tarot cards, oracle cards, the new age train of thought. And this is what I was saying in the beginning, I'm kind of old age, man, because in a lot of the old age beliefs, when you're in very intense emotional states, whether positive or negative, and this is actually a very Taoist philosophy, when you're in these intense emotional states, you're closest to the core of your true divine nature at that point. So why would you negate these? Why would you try to bypass this if when you're dealing with this and you're sitting through this, you're actually getting in closer and getting more in touch with that divine aspect of yourself? So I feel you, man. It's caused me, I'll digress and say it's caused me a good bit of frustration as well. I think it's a frustration that both you and I share on a level also. Because me, especially with some of the conspiracies in the New Age community as well that they have going on. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, that there's going to be intervention if there's going to be non-human intervention if the 1/10 of the planet does not wake up, or vice versa. It just perpetuates nonsense, man. So that you and I both agree on 100%.
But that's just the weird thing is though the massive amount of people that is supposedly quote unquote waking up, we haven't hit the prime number yet to ascend into the fifth dimension. You would think that by supposedly more people waking up that things would change.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. And it hasn't. Regardless of what happens. It's like it doesn't really matter because nothing actually changes. It just creates this echo chamber of people that are preaching to other people, and then new people are coming in, and then they're having to learn all this stuff, and then it just becomes this fest of nonsense and perpetuation of old ideas on top of semi-old ideas combined with information from people that have come 200 years. You know what I mean? It's just it's a regurgitation and a revolving door of things that have already been talked about with something new that's just been spliced in there to make it a little bit more spicy. And along with the buzzwords, you got to put the buzzwords in there. If you don't have the buzzwords in there, then no one is going to listen to you. They're not going to understand what you're saying. Like if you speak it to them plainly, you get a lot of backlash. Like people start coming after you. But if you say something like MK Ultra or Antarctica or the South Pole or directed energy weapon or some catch-all buzz phrase, then people are like, yeah, I 100% agree. It makes no logical sense. But I think in the um, beginning, I guess what I really meant by spirituality was more of a philosophical and theology type of show. That's really what I wanted to be, and I love philosophical and discussions, and discussing theology is some of my favorite discussions to ever have. But it's actually hard to have them nowadays because people get so butthurt and think that you're like arguing with them when you aren't. You're just actually making them think, and that's the way that a conversation is supposed to go. It's challenging each other's ideas, like with some of my favorite conversations that I've ever had on the show has been with Wayne Steiger and with Robert Filoco, and the one with David Whitehead was really good too. But Robert Filoco is a psychotherapist, and I get along really well with psychotherapists or any kind of therapist because they actually listen and respond based off of your reply. Any kind of therapist I've ever had a conversation with is really the best type of people to have a solid theosophical conversation with. But you mentioned obesity earlier, and this is a really important topic, is because America is in I believe the top 3 or 5. I would have to look it up statistically, but we're in the top countries with the least healthy countries. And obesity is we're like at least in the top 5 of most obese countries in the world. And I looked up a statistic earlier because I figured we were going to talk about this. Absolutely. And it said that women's obesity increased 21% from 1990 to 2022 at 43%. And for men, it decreased 16% to 41% in 2022. In 2022, every U.S. state and territory had an obesity rate of over 20%. Just think about that for a minute. Every single state in the United States had an obesity rate of over 20%.
And one of the biggest things, because you brought it up in the kind of the beginning of the show, because when it comes to food, this is something not a lot of people know about. So I'll kind of start here and we'll kind of expand and we'll build off of this. So you talked about the organic food section at the grocery store. And a lot of people don't really understand how this all began. So in the late 50s, early 60s, the World Health Organization, they embarked on creating this Food and Safety Act called Codex Alimentarius. And the U.S. became a member of Codex Alimentarius in 1963. So what Codex Alimentarius is, like I was saying, it's a Food Safety and Handling Act. So basically what this means is that it gives guidelines for what the World Health Organization considers safe food handling practices and packaging practices, right? But here's the thing about Codex is Codex gives the guidelines to monocultures, which is one of the things you don't see in nature. I mean, you could, if we could take a time machine and go back 2,000 years, we would never see acres of corn growing side by side. We would never see 2,000 to 3,000 cows packed in maybe a 15-acre lot. We would never see any of this. So that's kind of where the first thing kind of opened the door to what we would call factory farming and industrial farming. And I'll tie into where this kind of gets in today at this as well and how it ties into obesity. So with that also, Codex Alimentarius put in their guidelines that you have to use neonicotinoids for pesticides on your industrial crops. We've seen a lot of the information, the evidence on neonicotinoids and how bad they are for you. Also, as well, this is what gave the guidelines to give antibiotics, growth hormones to the meat, as well as imposing fines on farmers that did not want to follow the Codex guidelines and the USDA guidelines that were adjunct with the Codex guidelines. So you wonder why organic food is so expensive. It is because those farmers are paying fines because they do not want to follow the Codex Alimentarius and the adjunct USDA guidelines that go along with it. So what this ended up doing is this ended up blowing up factory farming. And then after it blew up factory farming, it started to decrease organic farming, which is why we saw the price go up for foods that are labeled organic. And that is when the organic label started to be put on foods at that time. So, and what's funny is if you look at the meatless propaganda that's going on right now, how they're saying that, oh, factory farming is blowing up greenhouse gases, it's increasing our carbon footprint, all of that. They're the original proprietors of that. And they did so back in the early 60s. So it's kind of an interesting, coming full circle when you look at it from the broader spectrum of everything that's going on. That, a lot of the stuff that's going on with the food, they had a hand in and they made it so in the early 60s. So, and the reason why I think obesity rates are starting to increase, well, this is kind of, one thing I think that you and I agree on. I don't think everything is an infiltration. I do think there are organic instances where, these things can happen in certain people or certain groups in the population due to whether it be human nature, human psychology. We have those things that we deal with as human beings. But where I think the obesity started to come into play was the convenience factor. I mean, you look at, if we
I
just
agree,
take
bro. Fast food, dude. Fast food gets
fast
a lot of
food.
people.
Exactly, man. Exactly. The convenience factor. So, I mean, if we look at
And
life
freaking
with
TV dinners, bro. Like
TV dinners,
getting
bro.
a TV dinner and some mac and cheese or whatever those mac and cheese packs are or whatever, and going home and making it doesn't mean you're cooking a meal. Okay? That's not cooking a meal.
It's not, man. And also, too, you heard about the whole fat sugar thing that happened in the 50s. Obesity was rising. We were starting to see an increase in cancers as well in the 50s. And what ended up happening is the sugar lobbyists got to Congress first before the fat lobbyists. And as we know, fat's very healthy for us. I mean, even saturated animal fat. If some people don't know what saturated fat does, it's essential to building hormones and neurotransmitters and actually coding your nervous system. So it functions properly. So like saturated fats are something that we do need. And so the sugar lobbyists in the 50s ended up making fat the enemy instead of sugar. So we have this whole low fat craze right now, or that kind of started to gain momentum. I think I want to say the late 60s into the 70s is when it started to really gain momentum. It started to get really big in the 90s. Because I remember my household being full of low fat things or, fat free things, vice versa. But if you look at the sugar content in a lot of these fat free or low fat products, it's grossly a lot larger than if you were to get the full fat product. And here's the thing too, is like, couple that with the sugars, the extra intake of sugars and artificial sweeteners. So we all know about Donald Rumsfeld and him trying to push aspartame. I think it was originally pushed, if I'm correct, in the 70s, and it got denied by the FDA at first because of the side effects. I mean, there was clinically documented side effects that aspartame does cause brain lesions. It does have a effect on the insulin system. It does still spike your insulin and have an insulin effect in your body. despite it being quote unquote sugar free. And then we know Donald Rumsfeld lobbied and ended up getting aspartame passed. I think it was in '84 during the Reagan administration, is when it officially got passed. And, we have a couple that the extra sugar, the artificial sweeteners, and then the seed oils as well. So, like, I did a whole episode on this. If anybody wants to check it out, it's called Deconstructing the Propaganda of the Food. And I kind of went through a lot of the what I'll call pop propaganda science articles that are stating that seed oils are not bad for you and you can eat as much of them as you want. But at the same time, I'm holding up an NIH study right next to it about the omega-3 to omega-6 balance. So this is something that not a lot of people understand and they're not, savvy on. So we have a ratio that we eat when it comes to fatty acids. So we have omega-3s, omega-6s is what we're going to talk about now. But we have omega-7s, omega-9s. They have their own different purposes in the body. In fact, if you're trying to boost testosterone, eat more omega-9s. There's a lot of clinical studies that kind of help that show that omega-9s, such as an avocado and olive oil, actually do help contribute to testosterone production in the human body.
You know what's really weird too? Not to cut you off, I want to
No, go ahead, man.
I want to pick back up on your thought 100%. So remember it. Remember exactly where you are.
Okay.
But it's so funny because if you get on like the internet, like you'll have people saying that one thing is good for you, and then you'll scroll down a little bit further, and then it'll have another person saying that that thing is super bad for you. You know what I mean? It's like this confusion type of thing that people don't really know what to believe because there's so much information out there. One side is telling you that it's okay for you. The other side is saying that it's not okay for you. So what is it supposed to be? You can literally get on a social media site and scroll through it, and someone will be like, make sure and eat all of your fruits whenever you blueberries are amazing for your skin. And then you scroll down a little bit and they'll be like, blueberries cause rashes on your genitals. Like, dude, it's so crazy, bro. It's so crazy. I've literally seen that happen several times. Like, the thing that I'm looking at is telling me one thing, and then I scroll down a little further, and then it's somebody saying the complete opposite. It's
I'm with you
unbelievable.
on that, man. I'm with you. So there's a lot of contradicting information. The best thing I could tell you is if you got to cook it and make it from scratch, it's okay for you. Or if it comes from nature, it's okay for you. The one thing not a lot of people talk about, though, in the plant-based community is they don't talk about oxalate and oxalate poisoning. So oxalate poisoning, it's a very slow effect. It's a compound that's picked up in the soil. It's from the pollution, but it's absorbed quite a bit by leafy greens, beets, certain berries have a affinity for it as well. I don't know if blueberries are on that list per se. But that's the other thing too, is you have a buildup of oxalates in the body. And what this will do is this will cause nervous system issues. This will cause kidney stones. You'll get calcium oxalate stones. And I've had a kidney stone before in the past. Let me tell you, you don't want one of those. It is not a fun time. And, but that's the other thing too, is, to kind of clear up that confusion, I would say that if you have to cook it, and you have to make it from scratch, or it's fresh to eat right off the tree, it's okay for you. It's good, because one of the things that I talk with a lot of people are whole foods. Okay. Like, and what do I mean by whole foods? You go to the store, you buy some eggs. Those eggs are a whole food. You go and you buy some rice. That rice is a whole food. Now, I know there's a lot of carbohydrate freaks out there. And I'll just go on whether they are anti-carb or pro-carb or whatever, your carbohydrate intake should be tailored to your daily activity. That's the number one thing if you're a very sedentary person and you don't work out, you're sitting at a desk a lot, or, you're not very active, then yeah, you can get away with a ketogenic diet. Absolutely. Or a paleo diet, something that switches your body into ketosis. They said fake eggs from China, which they do exist, but in the comment section down here. But, and that's fine. But if you're an athlete of any kind, or you train, like I do, you need carbohydrates. Those carbohydrates fuel the activity. And one of the biggest debates I've had with people on the whole carb thing is they talk about paleo and how we didn't eat these grains at the time. My biggest thing is this: we now have evidence for agriculture in human civilization that could potentially date back at this point in time to 500,000 plus years. These are, I'm talking new discoveries at this point. That maybe what we know as human civilization has been agriculturally inclined and has been a little bit more privy to how the world works longer than we have known, or what I guess you could say popular science wants to admit. So my question is, if that's the case, if we're now talking about 500,000 plus years with some kind of agriculture and harvesting, crops and things like that, how far removed is the true Paleolithic man at this point? Microevolution is the thing, guys. Like, if there's any kind of evolution, I'll tell you, has loads of evidence. Microevolution does. Animals and mammals can make small changes to their genetic structure over time to be able to handle different stimuli from the environment. So that's the whole thing, with the whole paleo thing. But we'll digress back to the point. But like I was saying before, the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio with seed oils. So the ideal ratio for, you want 6 to 1, 6 omega-6, 1 omega-3s. And this is the ideal ratio that you want to eat. But right now we're looking at 20 to 1 in American society. So we're looking at 20 omega-6s, 1 omega-3s. So the difference between omega-3 and omega-6 fats is omega-3s are your anti-inflammatory fat. So when you ingest omega-3s, it releases something called an anti-inflammatory prostaglandin. And what a prostaglandin is a hormone that takes care of inflammation in the body. So you're looking at the omega-3s kind of like being your Advil or your NSAID of the food world. Like, they help with these inflammatory issues. They help with heart health. There's not really much bad I can say about omega-3s. But then you get to omega-6s. Now, omega-6s are inflammatory fats. So when, yes, we do need inflammation. Inflammation is an important process in the body. I'm not saying that we have to be completely anti-inflammatory, but this is another thing that's causing the obesity, is we have a freaking massive amount of inflammation going on because of these increased amount of omega-6 fatty acids. So, inflammation itself will cause leaky gut, cause biofilm, cause all of these things that cause these digestion issues. And another thing a lot of people don't really talk about when it comes to obesity is the thyroid problems that we have here in America. And I'm going to go on a limb and say this: a lot of it has to do with the fluoride. And the reason why I'm saying that is not a lot of people understand this, but what fluoride does is it attaches to receptor sites on your thyroid. And when the fluoride attaches to receptor sites on your thyroid, it causes it to not function properly. And what we can do to alleviate this is take iodine. That's the number one thing that we can do to help alleviate that issue. That is the issue with obesity. Because iodine will actually work with the thyroid, knock the fluoride off of the receptor sites on the thyroid, and actually start to help it function normally and properly. And you look at the American diet, Ryder, we barely have any iodine, barely. And you can see in some salts, you'll have iodized salt, and it's got maybe 5% of your daily intake of iodine in it. But we look over at a lot of the Eastern countries, in China and in Thailand and in Japan, they eat loads of seaweed. They eat tons of seaweed over there. And seaweed is very high in iodine. And this is why when we go over to, despite Japan not having the healthiest diet right now, they've kind of imbibed themselves in the fast food industry and all of the convenience factors. We don't really see, yes, it's growing, but as of right now, we don't see so much obesity in Japan. Same thing with Korea, same thing with China, because their diets have a higher intake of iodine than the American diet has. So I'll digress and say this, man. Obesity has a multifaceted issue. It has, I mean, if I were to sum it up, it has to do with the sedentary lifestyle, the technology. It has to do with the convenience factor of foods, getting something when you want, something that tastes good, freaking might not be the best for you. What they're putting in the foods, the food handling processes. It's just a shit fest all around. And I'll leave it at that. Very nice. Your mic's off, bro. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was concentrated on getting
No,
this
you're all
up
good. You're all
than
good.
actually figuring out. But yeah, the federal court rules against EPA in lawsuits over fluoride in water. Federal court in California ruled Tuesday against Environmental Protection Agency offering officials to take action over concerns about potential health risks from currently recommended levels of fluoride in American drinking water supply. The ruling by District Court Judge Edward Chan, an appointee of former President Barack Obama, deals a blow to the public health groups and growing debate about whether the benefits of continuing to add fluoride to the water supply outweighs its risk. This is an article from CBS News.
Very nice.
Environmental nonprofit Food, Water, and Water Watch and a handful of anti-fluoride groups like Fluoride Action Network have been in court for nearly a decade after the EPA denied the petition against local water utilities adding in the mineral. While Chan was careful to say that his ruling does not conclude with certainty that fluoride in water is injurious to public health, he said that the evidence of the potential risk was now enough to warrant forcing the EPA to take action now. In all, there is substantial and scientifically credible evidence establishing that fluoride poses a risk to human health. It is associated with reduction in IQ of children, which is 100% true, and is hazardous at doses that are far too close to fluoride levels in the drinking water in the United States, the judge wrote in his ruling. So I don't really know what they're what's going to come of that, if anything is going to change, but they just ruled against it. I don't think that that actually means that they have to completely take out fluoride out of the water. I think that it just means that they have to lower the level of fluoride that's currently in the water. Hold on, let me find it here.
No,
which is better than nothing, because high levels of fluoride is very dangerous. Okay. Fluoride rules out water by Congress. No, Congress has not ruled out fluoride in water, but a federal court in California has ordered the Environmental Protection Agency to strengthen regulations on fluoride in drinking water. On September 27th, 2024, a federal court ruled that the EPA must strengthen regulations on fluoride in drinking water. The court found that the current recommended level of fluoride in drinking water is 0.7 milligrams per liter, poses an unreasonable risk to children's health. The court ordered the EPA to take regulatory action to eliminate the risk. So it doesn't mean that they're completely taking the fluoride out, but they have to lower the levels to a substantial amount. I don't know how much is currently in there. I'm guessing a lot, because I mean, we got a lot of wacky people running around, but I don't think that that's just the cause of the fluoride. The fluoride is definitely a part of it, but there's also pharmaceutical medications in the drinking water.
Agreed with that as well, man.
There's birth control in the drinking water. There's freaking hormones in the drinking water. You know, like there's all that stuff, because it's recycled water. It's not coming from a natural aquifer. So the stuff that you flush your toilet with and use in the sink is recycled right back into your sink.
Absolutely, man. And no, and you made me think of Alex Jones and the frogs turning gay. That's why I started. But dude, he got proven right on that. He got, you know, there was something that came out. I guess there is some kind of pharmaceutical or some kind of chemical that's in the water supply that does feminize men. So I mean, fuck. I mean, it's funny to think about, but no, you know, if somebody, because what fluoride does, man, is I mean, you know, a lot of people in the community know about calcifying the pineal gland. So I think I'll kind of expand on that a little. So what fluoride does is it draws excess calcium to wherever it attaches on receptor sites. So like, you know, like I was talking about your thyroid earlier. You know, when fluoride starts to attach to the receptor sites on your thyroid, It starts to attract calcium, and and what this can cause when you have this excess of fluoride, aside from the IQ issues and the hormone problems, it causes fluorosis of the bones, and that's something not a lot of people talk about. Fluorosis is actually when your bones become so brittle from the excess amount of calcium, because your bones have a mineral balance. This is why if anybody who's taking a calcium supplement, they already know they have to take calcium with magnesium and vitamin D in order to balance out that ratio that works for your body. But when you have an overabundance of calcium and you don't have that balance from the other mineral and vitamin D to go hand in hand with that, what it does is it ends up weakening bone density, and it causes fluorosis of the bones. And there was actually a news story, maybe while I'm talking to you, if you got time, but I guess it was either somewhere in the Midwest. It was either, I want to say, Minnesota or Indiana. They were having issues with children getting fluorosis of the teeth because of the amount of fluoride that was in their drinking water. So fluoride is a bad thing, man. I mean, even what you were saying with children, every time I walk through the grocery store, they still have the water for babies with fluoride in it. And, every time I look at that, I'm just like, why is this still here? Like, this should be gone. But but nonetheless, that's a little known problem to the obesity not a lot of people know about here, is because we talk about how fluoride calcifies the pineal gland and all that, but it fucks up your thyroid, man, and causes it to not act right, and causes it to not act and work as efficiently as it could with processing the nutrients that you intake through food. So it's a big issue.
Absolutely it is. And I hope that I mean, I don't understand why would they just lower the amount that they put in there? Why don't they just completely eliminate it? I don't understand why it's in there to begin with. Like, why are they actively putting fluoride in anyone's water? That should be the question. Like, why didn't they raise that to the freaking judge, the district court judge? Like, why is it in there at all?
Well,
Which they'll say it's because of your teeth and that, but that's what you go to the dentist for. You go to the dentist, they use fluoride on your teeth. You don't need it to be drinking it every single day. It's wild.
Exactly, man. And not a lot of people understand. So, expanding on that, we literally, if you're not aware of it, the human population is intaking what I would call at this point in time concentration camp levels of fluoride. So, I mean, yeah, you have it in the drinking water, but then if you're using a toothpaste or if you're using a mouthwash that contains fluoride, like, yes, you're swallowing little bits, but we're talking about total buildup here. So it doesn't stop there. So you have your water from public services. You have your toothpaste, which you swallow little bits of. And then you got your mouthwash, which you swallow little bits of. You can't help it. That doesn't even start to scratch the surface of Teflon. And what Teflon is. So Teflon is a fluoride carbon compound. There was a documentary about the Teflon plant. I think it was up in the East Ohio, West Virginia border, of the people who were working there who were having severe deformities and birth defects in their children from the Teflon. And so, I mean, you have to think, dude, Teflon stays in your body for life. For a very long time, because we're talking about a slow buildup. So you have not only the water, the toothpaste, the mouthwash, you have the pans that you're cooking with, you have the liners of cans and popcorn bags now that also have Teflon included in them. So, I mean, we are kind of getting bombarded.
And microplastics, all the freaking garbage. It's like what I'm saying, like, even if you have a filter, because I filter my drinking water through a filter that is supposed to take out 99% of like everything, which it does make it taste a lot better. But it's like, okay, well, we can take it out of the drinking water, but we still shower with the same water. We still wash our clothes in the same water. So you're getting it regardless. It's still absorbing into your skin through the shower. You're still hitting your skin. So it's like, but
I know, I'm with you.
Yeah.
One of the best things we can do is get a whole home filtration system. And the only thing that's going to remove is the fluoride, the microplastics, the pharmaceutical medications out of the water is a reverse osmosis filter. That's the only thing that's going to take all of that out. And if you do get a setup, you put it right on your cold water shutoff. It's not super hard. It comes with directions, shows you how to do it, all of that. But and you'll get remineralization tablets, because not a lot of people tell you is you do need minerals in your drinking water, or hyponatremia is a very fucked up thing, and a lot of people who swear by reverse osmosis water or distilled water that do not remineralize it. I always ask, how you feeling? Feeling a little tired? Feeling like your head hurts? Yeah, I can tell you why that is. But no, that's really the best route, man. And, taking iodine every day too, that's something I can't say enough about. One of the biggest hacks I have for that, if you guys want to hear it, go get kelp. Kelp is very high in iodine. It's cheaper than food grade elemental iodine, and it works just as good. So, you can go to the vitamin store and get a Nature's Way kelp supplement for $13, and that'll last you 3 months. As opposed to if you go order an elemental food grade iodine supplement, you're looking at paying $30 to $40 to $50 to upwards of $60 for just a month's supply. So that's what I would say, man. It's an investment. Some of the whole home filtration systems are like $200, but however, that it'll help alleviate most of that. And in my household, we cook with stainless steel and ceramic, and we try to alleviate. We try to jar our own things. We try to use the least amount of canned goods. We pop our own popcorn. We get popcorn wholesale that's not in the bags, and we just do a popcorn popper, and it works just as good. It's great stuff. You can put as much butter, cheese powder, whatever you want in it at that point too.
Dude, that nacho cheese powder is my favorite for the popcorn, dude.
Dude, you can't beat it. You can't beat it, man. And
so good.
but that's the way, man. And I'm glad we brought this up, because this is something a lot of people overlook. Not even just for the decalcification of the pineal gland, but all of the other, the hyperthyroidism thing is big, and it's a very huge thing that most people overlook when it comes to that.
Wouldn't it be wild if, like, you did all of these things, and you spent all this effort and time to, and the money to buy everything that isn't going to cause your body damage, but then you just end up dying the exact same way in the exact same time? It didn't increase your life expectancy at all. You just it was just going to be the same regardless.
Well,
That's what I think about sometimes. I'm like, oh, well, am I really doing anything here? I don't really know.
Well, the best way to put it is this, man. With a lot of this health stuff, and that's kind of where, the instant gratification factor can come into play. A lot of people, when they do this stuff, they expect this dramatic, I guess you could say, this dramatic new feeling to overcome them. Holy shit, freaking, I've been drinking non-fluoridated water and bathing in non-fluoridated water for 2 days. I feel fucking amazing and all of that. It's when it comes to health, man, the best way I can describe it is this: you will not notice it very much while you are doing it, but the minute you stop, you are going to notice it. And that is something, at least in my own subjective personal experience, I've encountered when it comes to certain things. What we were talking about with omega-3s earlier, there will be times where, I can't get to the store to go grab some because I'm busy at work or whatever, and I have to wait to the weekend, so I got to go a few days without it. By about day 3, I start to notice that I have not been taking my omega-3s. It's just it's very interesting way to explain it. But, I just feel like I'm very big on biofeedback. Your body tries to tell you things. Your body's speaking to you a lot. It's letting you know what's wrong. You just got to learn how to listen to it in your own way. But I just, dude, I can just tell my inflammation goes up. A lot of nagging injuries or nagging pains that I've gained throughout the years start to increase. It just becomes, my mind starts to not be as clear and as sharp. But this, again, like I'm saying, man, like, you know, it's a very interesting thing with health and supplements. There's certain supplements you'll feel. Don't get me wrong. Like if you get on a nootropic that's supposed to give you energy, fuck yeah, you're going to feel that nootropic and you're going to have a lot of energy from it. But when we're talking about general health, you know, as far as like things that go with the body, you're only going to notice it slightly while you're taking it and while you're doing it. If you are very perceptive and you understand your body and you know your body well, you'll feel it a little bit. You'll notice the difference, but you'll really notice it when you stop taking it. And, you know, of course, like we have genetics that come into play, like you were saying too. But then again, we have the field of epigenetics now, you know, which kind of shows us that we can rise above our genetic condition through our habits, and we can, you know, choose certain gene expressions based on our habits. So, I mean, it's really all about perspective, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, is the whole home, you know, filtration system going to alleviate every source of fluoride that you can intake? Absolutely not. I mean, you know, you're going to, I mean, what if you go to a friend's house and they're cooking with tap water, or, you know, which actually concentrates the fluoride when you boil it, you know, or things like that. Then that's where, you know, you do the best you can. That's where the iodine comes in. You know, you're making all of the right choices. I mean, you don't have to. One of the biggest things I think a lot of us in this community do is we turn into these hypercritical freaks about a lot of things. You know, like this person will not drink water. It doesn't matter if they're dehydrated, but they will not drink the water if it has fluoride in it. And it's like, dude, if that's the only source of water you have and you're fucking thirsty, at that point, drink the water. You're taking the iodine. You're doing everything else that you need to do, you know, to do the best that you can. And yeah, man, with health, it's not what I would call a instant gratification. Like, you know, you're not going to immediately see these effects or experience these effects. And that's why a lot of people, more often than not, fall off of their health journey prematurely. Because, dude, I'm going to tell you this, like another thing too, man. I mean, for working out, I didn't really start to see true and real results until about 6 to 8 months into it. And, you know, we see all of this stuff where people see these what I call fad programs. Oh, you'll get ripped in 90 days, like, you know, and you don't have to do anything else or this. But again, man, like one of the biggest problems we have in a society is chasing the instant gratification factor. You know what I mean? It's the dopamine. It's because we've become so addicted to our own endogenous dopamine. And that's really the only way that we consciously feel something or rewarded or like something's working, is with that hit of dopamine. It's not that delayed gratification process.
Well, that's also been, you know, exemplified by our technology as well. You know, like now we can just order something from Amazon, it'll be here tomorrow. We can get coffee delivered directly to us. We can Uber Eats. We can freaking DoorDash, whatever we want. And I just had a statistic up here. I missed it, but I think I accidentally exited out of the statistic. But I was typing in how many people eat out rather than cooking at home, because I was looking at that statistic really interestingly, and a lot of these studies are really skewed because they're thinking that, like I was mentioning earlier, that going to the store and buying some pre-made thing and then coming home and warming it up is considered cooking at home. But I mean, like actually going to the store, buying the things that you need and coming home and making a meal with ingredients, you know. And I had a really good one here. I don't know where it is.
Well, you know, I'll tell you a story. I'm not going to go into details on who they are, but I know two people right now who are very obese. Their doctor has basically gone to the guy and says, you need to lose weight or you will not make it into your 40s, is pretty much what the doctor verbatim said to him. And, they're family members of mine. And, but their solution is to eat out, but only eat out healthy things. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I wanna fucking like shove my palm through my face at that point, because it's like, dude, like, yes, it could be quote unquote healthy, but what kind of oil are they cooking it in? What else is going in there? Like, so I mean, it's a huge statistic thing, man, that, especially with the busy, spread thin lives most people are living nowadays.
Okay, I found it. It says that the research found that 70% of customers ordered food delivery in the past month. 70% picked up takeout order in the last month, while slightly fewer, 68%, ate at a restaurant in the past month. Like, that's wild. That's such a wild. And I've been running into more people every day that just like don't know how to cook. They just don't know how. Here it is.
Let's take a look.
Tag on it. Where did it go? Okay. That's not it. Okay. No. Okay, here it is. The research also found that 70% of customers ordered food delivery in the past month, right here. I just wanted to show that so people don't see that I'm just making stuff up. So that's the current state of affairs that we're in, is that people would rather order food to their house than actually cook the food themselves, and they're missing out on a really, I understand, okay, like a lot of people don't have time, like they're just working all the time, like 24/7, and the people that have like a family, it's a lot easier just to order food and have them eat it, but they're missing out on a lot of things there. Like, I'm a 100% believer in like energy and like the energy that you put into things, and the love and the attention that you put into things like come back to you. You know what I mean? So if you're like cooking food and you're putting positive and good energy into that, the cooking that food, the food is going to taste 100 times better.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be incredible for you to eat. And you don't know what these other people, because we were talking about before the show, is how people work a lot of jobs that they hate, that they don't want to work, especially in fast food and like restaurants. I mean, there are some restaurants where, people love, where there's an actual chef in the back and he loves cooking, and then he's going to cook you an amazing meal. But for the most part, especially with fast food, like those people do not care about their jobs, because it's not meant to be a career, but they're looking at it as like a career. Like, oh, I'm going to stay at McDonald's for freaking 30 years or whatever, and maybe I'll become the manager, and maybe I'll move up one day. But those types of jobs are not career types of jobs, but people have turned them into career types of jobs, and they hate every single minute of it, every second of it. I haven't, but I don't eat fast food. I haven't eaten fast food in like, I don't know, maybe once or twice in the past 6 or 7 years.
Nice.
But what I did whenever I did go to fast food restaurants, those people look like they hated their lives. 100%.
Well,
but again, like people, they don't have enough time to cook a proper meal. I mean, even if I lived alone, I would still cook my own meals. I wouldn't order out, because that's just what I've become accustomed to and what I've become used to. And it's actually fun. It's fun to cook your own food.
Oh, absolutely,
I enjoy
man.
it.
Cooking is a skill, man, and I think everybody should know that. And there's a lot of really good options for a lot of the people that you talked about. So, I have certain quirks with them. I'm going to tell you, there's certain things you probably shouldn't eat from them. Like, don't eat their bread or their rolls, but everything else is pretty sound. Is HelloFresh, man. And no, I'm not being a paid spokesperson by them. Don't get me wrong. This is just something I've used. And we still currently use it here and there. But what it does is it basically is you pick out these meal plans. You pick out these meals, right? Like you look at whatever's good, and what they do is they send you this box. They send you all the ingredients. They send you the meat. They send you the veggies. They send you the carb, all of that stuff. And all of these are in these little brown bags, and they're organized and separate. So, I mean, and basically the grocery shopping's done for you. The picking of the meals done for you. All you need to do is just chop the stuff up and cook it at that point. So like it opens up a door, you know, for people who do feel very spread thin, those people who have families, those people who work a lot of hours and those dead end jobs. I totally get it. But this opens a option for people. So, you know, they can learn to cook. I think cooking is a very valuable skill. Like, you know, I mean, some people like me, I've taken it to the next level. I make cheese, I make pickles, I make wine. Like I do, you know, like a whole bunch of different things that, that are good skills to learn. And you can always kind of keep yourself, you know, as an adult, we get different hobbies, right? Like when, you know, we're kids, we have these different hobbies we do. When we're adults, you know, I don't call them boring hobbies. I think they're kind of fun. You know, you learn how to make cheese, you learn how to make wine, you learn how to make pickles. Like you kind of, expand your repertoire. And, you know, what's great about that too is like, you know, I love pickled green beans. You go to the store, they're like $10 a jar, but I make them for $1.50. And freaking, you know what I mean? And it's good or whole stuff. I'm not putting sulfites or carbonate or carbides in any of my pickles. It's just vinegar, salt, sugar, and pickling spice. So like, you know, at that
Oh,
point,
dude, I love some pickled eggs, bro. I'll eat the crap out of
dude,
some pickled
I'll
eggs.
make you some pickled eggs next time you come out here, man. Hell yeah, dude. I love
Pickled
pickled eggs.
eggs.
Dude, I'm telling you, bro, it's good stuff, man. But
Pickled
and
eggs
that,
and pickled beets. Oh my god, dude.
dude, don't even get me. Dude, have you ever made beet eggs? Where you soak the eggs in the beets and the
Yeah.
juice and you let them soak for, oh dude.
Yeah, it's pickled eggs. Yeah, pickled eggs. I would get the make the jar of beet, make the beet juice, and then dump the hard-boiled egg into the beet juice and let it soak for a couple of days.
Oh,
Boom,
dude,
done.
it's that's the best shit in the world, man. Like that is
Mhm.
underrated. But you know, the same thing, man. And as you were saying too about these dead end jobs, also, man. And I think so. This is kind of I didn't get a chance on this, so we do have to talk about consumerism. And I agree with you, Tim. That's a very good point, man. You should be able to cook yourself a decent meal and eat good.
But I've also ran into people too, Steve, that don't know how to wash their own clothes. Legitimately. He's not lying here. Like I've literally ran into people that have never washed their clothes before and that don't know how to wash their clothes or operate a washing machine. It's
Oh, yeah.
unbelievable.
It's you know, this is the two things I want to address real quick. So first, you know, we have the consumerism. The number one thing that's pushed in our society, especially in American culture. We have consumerism, and the consumerist mindset is kind of what's put on a pedestal, like, you know, consume, 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 buy, things like that. And, you know, that also gets tied into, you know, food as well. You know, like, I mean, you look at a lot of these food commercials for these, they try to make things look really appetizing. And that also plays into the consumerist mentality that, you know, we're dealing with in American society. The other thing about these dead end jobs, too, dude, is the fact that real skills are no longer talked about. They're no longer pushed by people. You know, even what you were saying about the washing machine. Truth be told, I had to teach my brother how to do laundry when he was 20 years old because my mom pretty much did it all for him. So like he knows how
That's
to
what
do it
I'm
now,
saying,
thankfully.
bro. That's what I'm saying. What is
I'm telling you.
happening, dude?
Dude, it's well, you know, we have to take a look at a lot of things, man. So like, you know, real skills are not pushed. Like I'm an electrician by day. You know, and I'm grateful that I did get into this career, at least for the most part, because it is a practical skill that, you know, I can take with me anywhere and that this world needs. Right now, what's being pushed is going to, and then I'm not saying college is worthless. If you have a plan to get into a lucrative career that is skillful in college, then by all means go to college. But what I'm seeing pushed a lot of nowadays are these useless and pointless degrees that a lot of people are. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm not hating, but a women's studies major. Like, what are you gonna do in the real world with a women's studies major? Like it's like that's and you're forking over, I don't know how much, $40,000 for tuition per semester, or sometimes less or more. When we're talking about this. So that's what seems to be being pushed by a lot of the mainstream, is going to college and getting a degree in something that's absolutely pointless, at least in my eyes.
Well, it's either pointless or it's something that people don't really even want to do but they're doing it because they feel like they have to, or that it's going to make them money in the future. They're not doing it because they actually want to do it or that they like to do it. They're doing it for ulterior reasons, and that is putting a hole in their soul. Is making them very unhappy with their lives because they're doing something that they necessarily don't want to do, but they're doing it either because their family wants them to do it, or they think that it's societally acceptable for them to have to do it. There's a lot of that's a really big issue as well. It's like these things are just pushed on people when they don't want to do them, or they don't feel like they should do them, but they do them anyway. And that creates a really unhealthy society.
I would agree, man. And I think, what we're also looking at, and when we talk about the sickness in this society, it's conformity. And that is something I think that, we all have to address. I'm not saying overall conformity is a bad thing. I mean, when we're talking about it from a sociology standpoint, there has to be some degree of conformity in order for society to function properly. So but what we're encountering is it's become out of balance, this conformity. It's almost become a hyper conformity, to where, with your even touching on your post about authenticity, right? On how, authenticity is being stifled right now. And I completely agree with that. It is because of this hyper conformity. And this is something too, like you're saying, they're doing it because they feel like they're supposed to. I mean, it all ties down into a lot of different factors. I mean, you're coming out of high school, you got all your friends going to college, and they're taking all of these weird majors that are not going to get them real jobs out in the real world. And, you want to be part of that gang, you want to be part of that group. And, we look at what a lot of the mainstream, as far as politics pushes and stuff like that, they tell you to go to college. You know what I mean? And don't just go to college. It doesn't matter what you do there. Just go to college. And just go to college. And that's basically, the thing that's pushed quite a bit. So, and that also kind of falls into play is, you have people who are doing it because they feel like they're supposed to do, but that even kind of, one of the biggest things, at least in my opinion, that is wrong with our society when it comes to stuff like this is we have a couple of different things. We have what I would call oxymoronic societal norms, and we have oxymoronic stereotypes that this society, and it's not just American society. I know there's other developed countries kind of do it as well, but they place these oxymoronic norms and they place these oxymoronic stereotypes on pedestals in society. And what this kind of does is this breeds mental illness. This breeds mental instability. I mean, a very good example of this is this. I mean, nowadays it's changed. Now the ideal man is completely skinny fat and wears bras and females' clothes, and the ideal woman is extremely obese. And but back in the day, before a lot of that took over, you would see a man or a woman that was presented as like the ideal man or woman, and they were what I would call the rare genetic outliers of the human population. Very rarely do you see a woman who is a size 0 and stacked naturally. Very rarely. That's not something that you gaze upon very often. Same thing with the men. You don't really find a lot of men who have like a 30-inch shoulder span with a 26-inch waist. Like, you know what I mean? That's not something you see. And I mean, even with a lot of the oxymoronic norms, and this is one thing I've said in a lot of my episodes, we are metaphorically in American society jumping off a bridge because everybody else is. We might not be physically doing it, because you remember when your mom was, when you were a kid and you did something bad with your friends, and your mom would go, well, if Jimmy jumped off a bridge, would you? And you're like, no, Mom, I'm not going to do that. But this is what Americans do in American society on a day-to-day basis. They metaphorically, figuratively jump off a bridge because everybody else is doing it. And it comes down to...
Come on, bro. Get on Ozempic with me, dude. Let's get super skinny, dog.
Dude, I can't afford that. I got Lizzo. I got Lizzo.
Give me some Lizzo, dude.
I'm gonna get some diabetes, hopefully, man. I can get the Ozempic then.
But it is interesting what you're talking about, though, is like, because it's the exact opposite of the spectrum. So they propped up in the beginning, they propped up these ridiculously unachievable types of people that an average person will never be able to look like or be like. And then now it's the complete opposite of that. They've flipped the script, and now it's just the extreme opposite. Now it's
it is, dude. Now we're alt right because we're not fat. That's basically what they're trying to say.
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
No. Go ahead. You first.
No, I was just gonna go to a completely different topic, but I want to stay on this.
No, you're good. No. Well, the thing too, man. The thing too, like, you know, I was saying that. I mean, this is what caused a good example. Like, we follow a lot of these oxymoronic norms in our society, and we have no idea where they came from. We have no idea who made it a norm. Like, one of the weird norms that I've heard throughout my life is by the time you're 30, you should be in your dream career. You should have already bought in a house, and you should already have kids. And I'm like, who the fuck said that? Like, do you know who said that? No. Okay. Do you know when this was instilled as a norm or an ideology in American society? No. So then why the fuck are you following it? Like that's like the biggest thing. I mean, that's part of, you know, I guess even saying, you know, being a critical thinker, you know, when you're looking at everything that's happening around you. Another one, man, a lot of people, or it's a norm proposed in society that a man should have short hair and be clean shaven. Okay. Who said that? Who instilled that as a norm? And I saw somebody in the comment section said imposed norms, which I completely agree on, because in my eyes, they were imposed. They have no origin date. They were thrown into the mix somewhere down the line. You know, somebody famous kind of said it, or a politician said it, or something like that. And this is what also causes a lot of mental illnesses, Ryder. You know, these oxymoronic stereotypes and these oxymoronic norms. I mean, you know, another woman were considered a spinster, if not exactly. You know what I'm exactly. So like, you know, and because a lot of us are constantly, I'll say the general collective are in a state of autopilot. They don't take a look at this, and they don't understand this, and they just continuously, figuratively jump off the bridge with, you know, the rest of the American population, because they're all following this stuff. And this is kind of, you know, we're now diving into the psychological issues behind the sickness in this society. And in my eyes, at least in my opinion, like I was telling you in the beginning, we have organic instances and we have instances that are imposed. And I do think it's a combination of both. I do not think that it is completely and entirely governments or, intelligence agencies trying to, craft humanity in a certain way. I mean, that is definitely an aspect of it, at least in my opinion. But
For a
there's
large
also
majority, we've done it to
yeah,
ourselves.
exactly. It's organic. It's organic, dude. And like that's even kind of the stuff that we talk about with the conspiracy community, and kind of even tying into that a little bit. The gross amount of the infighting and the bullshit and the belligerence that goes on, it's organic in a lot of ways too, man. I mean, we as humans have psychological schemas that we have dealt with since the time we've been walking upright and we've been originated as human beings. And these things are something that humanity struggles with, and that also comes into play here as well. I do agree with you on that. I'm on the half and half. It is. There's organic instances for sure, and we can't negate that.
Well, you bring up a really good point in saying, because a lot of people feel like, I feel like that everything is just kind of rushed.
Mhm.
Like a lot of people think that their life is just over when they turn 30. Like
Mhm.
if they haven't achieved what they're set out to achieve, like they're just not going to do it by the time they're 30. Like that's the biggest lie ever. Like you don't need to cram all this garbage into a very short span of time. You don't. Like
Agreed.
you can spread it out. And I think that that's been a really big problem with the colleges and these people in education, because they've made it so expensive for people to, like, let's say you wanted to go be a doctor or like be a medical professional, you're going to have to be in school for at least 8 years. You know how much school debt you've accumulated over those 8 years?
Quite a
You're not
bit.
you're not going to pay that off until you're like 50,
I
55.
know
Some
people who are
people are
still
still haven't paid it off.
Mhm.
So the incentive is there because they think that they have to get a head start and a jump start on it because it's so freaking expensive that they actually want to have some kind of retirement or some kind of period of their life where they're not doing something. They can just kind of relax and like take care of their family and all that. But that's been something that's been pushed by them, and also they want to get their money, right? So
Oh,
if you go through
absolutely.
public school is basically free. Besides the lunches, you got to pay for your lunch,
Mhm.
and that's free education. So by the time you're done with freaking since if you went to preschool, 12 years of freaking schooling from the public school system, like you weren't really paying them any kind of money. That's all government and state funded public school
Mhm.
system. Then you got to turn around and pay them thousands and thousands of dollars to get into a profession, to get a career,
Mhm.
So they're
It's
like, oh,
it's
where's our money? Give us our money. you know
it is, man. And well, so another thing too, you brought up, the rushed thing. And this I would say is kind of like an imposed norm. And this is something that happens in American society quite a bit. Is it's always what's next. You can never take the chance. Like for instance, like you're asked what you want to do with your life when you're fucking 12 and 13 years old. I want to know what 12 or 13-year-old kid like truly deep down knows exactly what they want to do in life. There's probably one or two out of the the whole spectrum of children that might potentially have some kind of sound idea of what they want to do for the rest of your life. But then you get out of high school, it's like, oh, where are you going to work or where are you going to college? And then when you're in college, it's like when you getting a girlfriend, when you getting married, this and this. It's always what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next. And we as human beings don't get to have the chance to, and this is something I think is really big, and I'm even going to kind of get into Graham Hancock about this a little bit, because human beings need to be able to focus on the present. Like, we need to be able to presently know, enjoy, and appreciate where we're at. If we're constantly always focused on the next thing, what this does is this kind of causes a dissatisfactory detriment within our mental sphere. And we're never happy. We're never, because we're always focusing on what's next. And we always think that, happiness is found in what's next. It's never here now and a choice, I guess, is the best thing I can explain with that.
Or
And,
that happiness comes from money and success means money, when that's not the
exactly.
case. That's the complete opposite. Success means that you're happy with yourself, you're happy with your decisions, you're happy with how far you've come. Success doesn't mean that you have a lot of money. But for a lot of people,
Exactly.
that's what it means. They confuse being successful with money or having a high paying job. That's not what being successful means to me. Is that I'm sure that's not what successful means to you. Give us your
Absolutely not, man.
definition of being successful, Stephen.
My definition of being successful would be to have a nice house on a decent bit of land, living my spiritually sound life where I chill in my backyard, work on my garden, and play with my Zen garden. That's pretty fucking. I know some people might look at me and go, "That's fucking success to you," and I'm like, "Absolutely, dude. That is fucking success to me." In my eyes, success is having a, I call it a spiritually sound life, but a lot of people, a happy life, one that you desire. I mean, to me, that's the ultimate success, man. And if there's something I've seen, is it's more money, more problems. Okay. And like this, the more money you have, the more money you're going to spend. The more issues that are going to arise from that. And it's it's that dissatisfactory mentality. You're placing your happiness on physical and material objects. I really like that. If you can't find happiness within, you won't find it without. That's a good one, Tim. Thanks for that. And but I'll digress and I'll say you can't have that dissatisfactory mindset. You and Nina, we all want backyards with Zen gardens. A lot of us do. That's a good thing to have. And but again, man, like, you can't always you can't also define yourself from the expectations of others. I think this is something that happens in American society a lot, is we live on a lot of other people's expectations, and this also destroys our authenticity, and who we are and what we truly appreciate in life as well. And constantly thinking success is around the corner and not within your control at this point in time, I think, is one of the biggest things that we as a society have to understand. And success is within our reach. I mean, my definitions of success might not be yours, Ryder, or it might not be anybody else's in the chat, but that's what success is to me. And that's me tapping into my authenticity and being like, yeah, I don't need a mansion, like, a nice, I'll say like 2,000 square foot home on a plot of land with my Zen garden. Yeah, it can even be single level. I don't need it. I don't even need it to be 3 levels. You know what I mean? So freaking, it's like it's it's definitely and that's part of the thing we have to do as Americans, and at least in this society. I'll digress and I'll say this, is that you have to find your own meaning of success, your own meaning of happiness. If you are riding on the expectations of others and you're destroying your authentic self in the process, you're going to constantly be miserable. You're never going to be happy, and you're always going to be looking for the next best thing. And you don't want to be there, my friends, because I know people who are there, and I feel really fucking bad for them at this point in time.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from, stamping down that authenticity very young, and hitting you with a traumatic thing, or being made fun of when you're really young for being your true authentic self, and getting put on some kind of medication because your teachers think that you're some kind of unruly kid when you're just being a kid. Let kids be freaking kids. Like that's what they are. Like any other expectation you have from them is not correct. They are kids. They're kids, and they're going to do kid things. Okay, you can't be mad at kids for being kids. It's like being mad at a dog for being a dog. If a dog bites you, you can't be mad at the dog. A dog's a freaking dog, bro.
Exactly.
But 70% of, when I'm talking about, pharmaceutical medications here and putting children on pharmaceutical medications, 70% of the adults in the US are on at least one pharmaceutical medication. 40% are on two or more pharmaceutical medications. And half the population, with all genders and ethnicities all combined, are on some form of pharmaceutical medication. And also annually in the US, twice as many people die of overdoses than the Afghanistan war, the freaking Vietnam War, and the Iraq War all put together. I'm going to say that one more time. Annually, meaning yearly, in the United States, twice as many people die of overdoses than the Afghanistan War, the Vietnam War, and the Iraq War put together. Right? And mental illness comes along with that, illness and mental health problems. We've seen a steady rise for years and years and years now. Mental health gets worse every single year. And particularly pertaining to children. Children have been on the rise as having many mental health problems. And listen, the statistics don't lie. And those are the statistics. And something is wrong with our culture on a fundamental level. When you look at all the things that I just said, you couple that with the obesity rate that we've already talked about, something is horribly wrong. Something somewhere got really screwed up along the way.
Oh, I would agree. And I think, kind of touching base on what you said in the beginning a little bit, you notice how when we're growing up, they always tell us to be unique, be creative, and all of this stuff, and we get slapped down for it. Like it was, at least when, you and I were growing up as kids, we're about the same age. One thing that was constantly kind of, pushed on us is to be unique, be yourself, be creative. But, when we would be this way, we would constantly get shit for it. Whether it was, we were bullied by other kids, or we were bullied, or, other adults had an issue with it. And it seems like now that that's not really what they want you to do. They want you to keep your head down and fall in line. I mean, that's exactly. And yes, pharmaceutical medications, man. And I think, what was it, Nina said that drugs are the real epidemic. I was looking in the comments. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and agree with that. And what I really think kind of happened with the whole shift in mentality towards health, at least in that aspect, a lot of people, talk about the Rockefeller campaign with the petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. Whether or not that's been entirely substantiated, what we do see is at the turn of the 20th century, we see a lot of natural medicines that were used in the pharmacopoeia for many, I'll even go on a limb and say thousands of years, were then labeled as alternative and as something that was secondary, as opposed to pharmaceutical medications, which are now considered the primary route of treatment. And, the thing about pharmaceutical medications, and, I feel like a lot of people have heard this, but I'll bring it up at least this one time, is that you got a cure for one ailment, but it comes with 30 other side effects. And, then you start taking these other medications to alleviate the side effects. And then those medications have side effects. And then,
before you know it, you're on 15 different medications.
Exactly. I think due to a lot of conditioning that happened at the turn of the century. One thing that's happened is we've been conditioned to think a lot of things are hyper complex. Especially in the area of health. When it comes to this and stuff like that, we've been conditioned to think that our health is so hyper complex. We don't know anything about it more than these doctors and these scientists. So we're going to hand over, our, at least in that aspect, I'll say sovereignty. We're going to hand over our sovereignty to these doctors and scientists because our health is so hyper complex. We don't know how to take care of it on our own, when in all reality it's actually quite simple. And it's quite simple to be healthy. It's quite simple to take care of your health. It's just a matter of having the will to do so and not having other people do the thinking for you. And I mean, you kind of take a look at a lot of the stuff we've talked about in this episode, man. You couple the very spread thin lifestyle, you couple the oxymoronic norms and stereotypes, the way we are to each other as humans in general, that breeds addiction. When you have, there was a huge study, and this is actually a well-known study, man. You might know this. So they had these rats, and they did a study with drugs with them. And what they did is they took one set of rats and they put them in this very hyper cramped, really fucked up environment. And I mean, like, not a good environment for a rat. I mean, it was, and so they had 2 water bottles. They had one that was water and sugar, and then they had one that was water and cocaine. Well, won't you know, when the rats were in this real fucked up environment, in this real fucked up predicament, they were chugging down that water and cocaine, dude. They were all about it. And then what they did is, after a little bit of this, they took those very same rats and they put them in this very nice environment. They put it very nice, very open, very spacious. I'm sure they had a couple little wheels they could run on to burn off their energy. Lots of food, lots of things to entertain themselves with. And man, would you know that within a day of doing this, the rats stopped drinking the cocaine water completely, and they moved into just drinking the sugar water. So I think this scientific experiment, it can kind of lay out what's going on here. I mean, at least a little bit when it comes to human society in the aspect of drugs.
That experiment was called the Rat Park, I believe, is
the Rat Park,
what it was
yeah.
called. Yeah, and that tells you a lot about people's environment, like how big environments play a role in people's mental health and also trickling down into their physical health as well.
Absolutely, man. And that's kind of the case in point here. We look at the current environment of especially our country where we're at. And I know Shane feels it where he's at too, up north. And we're looking at these predicaments, and this explains a lot of it, man. It explains the hyperfixation on drugs. It explains the the attitude towards it. I mean, people just want to be, I mean, especially, the whole fentanyl thing too, man. That's a part of me wants to think that's a little bit organic, but somebody who has the history with drugs that I do, I'm a recovering opiate addict. Don't worry, I've been recovered for a long time. I'm doing real good. We're talking about a decade plus at this point, almost 2 decades of not touching that shit. So, but for me and what I know about that, the nitazines and fentanyl, man, that those should not be out on the streets. Because if you know what they are, I mean, we're talking about opiates that are meant to take down elephants. Okay, we are talking about drugs that are meant to take down like 900-pound animals. Okay, that have now started to circulate in the streets. And thanks for the Rat Park article, man. I appreciate that, Ryder. But freaking but that to me, that instance is an interesting one because I'll never say that I am a master in pharmaceuticals or pharmacology, but it was something I did want to pursue, pharmacology and things like that, when I was a younger child, because I used to research all the drugs I would put in my body and what they did. And but no, man, like even the whole thing with the nitazenes and the fentanyl hitting the streets, that's just a very weird thing to me.
Well, that's the problem too, is the fentanyl is a white powder and it can be disguised as whatever. It can be in your cocaine, it can be in in pills, the street pills that people are selling. You can go get you think that you're getting some pain medication and it's not, and it's super high dose of fentanyl and you just die. Even blood pressure pills. I mean, shit, dude. And benzos, the pressed pills, like they're just pressing fentanyl and putting fentanyl into everything. They're putting it in the meth and the cocaine. It's just gotten wild, and it's so concentrated in there that you just don't know what you're getting, and you do a little bit of it and you're gone. That's happened. And 60. What blows my mind, Stephen, is that 16,000 people a year. That's the rough estimate of people that die of overdoses in the United States. If that was anything else, let's say a freaking, well, we did go to war over the Taliban, but a random organization, if a random organization, let's say freaking Cocoa Pebbles was killing 16,000 people a year,
we'd be hearing something about it.
They would do something about that. It would be instantly gone like that.
Oh yeah.
Completely. But it's not, because there's so much money that's being made off of illegal drugs. That's why they're still illegal. That's why that all this stuff is happening, is because there's a lot of money that's being generated from it.
Well, the thing about, like, I was kind of, then there's, so yes, there's the thing, there's some organic instance to this, because this is the one thing I'll add. Human beings have been taking drugs and ingesting substances for, I think, in recorded history now at this point, we're like at the 80,000 year mark. I mean, we've been taking drugs and drinking alcohol for a very long fucking time. So, like, I mean, humans are always going to want to do drugs. It's just a human thing. Whether they stay in the soft drug department, like with cannabis, a little bit of alcohol here and there, some psychedelics here and there, that's one thing, or they move into the hard drug department, which some people do. That portion of it's really hard for me to say it could be organic, especially with the fentanyl and the nitazenes. Like, I mean, like I said, we're talking about opiates that are meant to take down 900 plus pound animals, dude, that are circulating in the streets right now. Like, I remember too, when they they brought it up, there was a little news snippet I saw on X, like probably like a year ago. And I agree with you, Fireflies in the Lighthouse. I'm pretty much sober for the most part myself. I don't really, I mean, I have a glass of the wine I drink to try it, and that's it. And I occasionally take a bull hit in the evenings. That's pretty much all I do. But like I was saying, man, like when I saw the news snippet freaking come out about the nitazenes, I knew immediately what they are. And I'm like, why the fuck is this out in the street? Like, I was like, why? We were looking at this shit back in the early 2000s on research chemical websites, and it had giant warning symbols all over it that was like, do not take this. This is not for human consumption. And like, so, I mean, with, we know the illegal drug trade is a big moneymaker. I mean, that's where also too, where it comes down into play, Ryder, I think, is, the government does profit off illegal drugs, whether it's through the prison system, whether it's through leaking certain kinds of compounds onto the street. We do know let's talk about the whole crack epidemic in the early 80s. you know, and how the CIA was involved with that too. I mean, so like, again, like, you know, there
And then
is
the heroin trade during Vietnam, like, dude,
exactly,
it's so
ex-
wild, bro.
exactly, man.
So
And
wild. And there's no other explanation for it than I don't really want to go there with it, but it's like, why? Why would they want to put this thing that can kill you unless there's an agenda behind? You know where I'm going with it. I'm
I
not
know
going to say
exactly
it,
where you're going with
but
it.
there's an agenda behind that because there's no other explanation. Why would you want to put something that can kill you into cocaine, which cocaine is supposed to do the opposite of kill you? Supposed to pick you up and make you, excited and get a little wild or whatever, have a good
turn you
time
into
at the
Tyrone
party.
Biggums.
Yeah, or something like that. Terry Crews, you turn into Terry Crews real quick. But like, why would they put that in there? And there's only one explanation, that it's an agenda, and that's all that I'm going to say about it because,
I know we don't have we don't have proof, you know, but and I'm with you on that. But no, and that's the same thing as it, like dude, like, you know, the thing with drugs is you want repeat customers. Like that, you want you want them to come back and buy more drugs. And it's like why are you gonna put something in there that makes it so you don't know if they're gonna come back and buy more drugs from you? And I'm with you on that, man. And part of me, even though I'm speculating on this, I do think it's some kind of weird form of population control. I do. And the reason why I think that, and that's my theory, is because if you look at the population it's affecting, what they call the undesirables, the homeless people, a lot of the low income people that it's affecting and that are losing their lives because of this stuff. And like, you know, and I'm with you on that, man. Like I said, you know, like we don't have any hard evidence, but when you look at the fact that we have things that are meant to knock out 900 plus pound animals floating around the streets, man, that's a weird thing to look at.
sounds like an agenda to me. And then when you're bringing up the crack epidemic too, I think that was put there for the destruction of the nuclear family. I think that's what that whole thing was set up to do. It was to split apart the African American communities, make it to where they can't do anything about their situations. They have to live in squalor and live in the hood and keep living in the hood, and they don't see any way out. So they made it to where the men, would rather chase this drug than take care of their family or take care of their wife or their girlfriend or whatever. And that trickled and rippled out into, other communities as well. Now it's just a full-fledged, like, nobody's safe type of scenario. Doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter if you're in a super rich, well-off family or, someone. I think every single person at least knows somebody that's died from an overdose. That is a wild statistic.
Dude, shit, man. So back, I lost a friend of mine from high school, back in 2019. And you want to know what's funny is he was the clean cut kid in high school. He used to give us shit all the time for like drinking beers and smoking weed. And like, you know, we used to like kind of give him shit for that, man. But then I got a call from an old buddy of mine, like, Brent died from a fentanyl overdose. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, Brent, clean cut Brent, like fucking went to church every Sunday, like freaking gave us shit for partying. That kid died from a fentanyl overdose. So you're absolutely right, man. Like there's no discrimination, when it comes to experiencing this, and for the people who it has affected. I mean, I can think of at least 3 people I know off the top of my head that have died from overdoses. 100%, man. And it's sad when you think about it because, I mean, I saw someone in the comments earlier say like, what happened to good old heroin? But at the same time, dude, like you had to really try to OD off heroin, like with fentanyl. You're literally, it's like, it's not even about getting high anymore, dude. It's like, let's go play Russian roulette. We might die today or we might get high. That's kind of where it's all come down to, man. And even drawing back to the rat experiment I was talking about, man. I mean, it kind of sums it up perfectly that, we're not in the best mentally sound environment that we should be.
Well,
As
not
human
only that,
beings.
out of the 16,000 people that die every year of overdoses, that's just not 16,000 people that's lost. Like, you could probably double or triple that amount of lives that it affected,
Oh,
because
yeah.
all those people had friends, they all had family, they all had loved ones. A lot of them probably had kids. So
Yeah,
not
dude.
only are they no longer here, it has negatively affected all of those people's friends and family as well. So it's not
Oh,
just those people
100%.
that are affected. It's like this whole network of people that it's also negatively affecting.
And that's where it's like, a lot of people say drug use is a victimless crime. And I'd say that's a half true statement, because when we're talking about alcohol has its victims, don't get me wrong, but there's certain ones. I mean, cannabis, like, you can abuse cannabis, and it can make you worthless. I'll 100% agree that. I would agree with that. I do think people lift it up a little too much, and try to make it seem like it has no cons to it. But yes, if you abuse it, it'll make you worthless. It'll make you unmotivated. But as far as taking your life and affecting the life of your family or friends, it's not going to do that. I mean, but but we look at these hard drugs, like we're talking about, and they're not victimless crimes, because when the person ODs, I mean, like somebody said in the comments, you are the victim. And on top of that too, dude, you just cut off your time with your family. You just cut off your time with your friends, people who love you, and it's that in and of itself, man. Like you said, you said 16,000 people. I mean, we could even guesstimate that somewhere around 60 to 80,000 have been affected in totality from that. If we're talking about family members and friends groups and things like that, man, it's a tragic thing. And I could have ended up there. And yes, the ODs are from the fake pills, Tim. They're from the fake Roxys, that people think are real, but they're not. But it is, man. It's sad. And that's why, man, honestly, one of the biggest reasons I'm big into self-help, and trying to change the game on that a little bit, and by living it, dude. Like I said, I'm up at 3:00 in the morning. I'm at the gym by 3:30, 4 a.m. every day. I come home, I meditate, I freaking, try to live a very positive, healthy life. And, I try to show people that it's possible, dude. Like it's not something impossible, and I think that maybe, and this is something that's they say it is, and in ways it is, but in ways it's not happening in the way I'd like to see it per se. They say mental health is becoming a bigger priority here, but in some ways it is. In some ways it's not, because a lot of the things that are still affecting our mental health as humans, they're still here, and we're still dealing with them. And I'm like, yeah, they might have given us more resources. They might have given us like things like betterhelp.com, or, more places to go talk to people. But as far as having a mentally sound environment overall for the human population, we don't have that. And that's where I kind of bring up this one. I don't know if you're a Graham Hancock fan, but in his early days, when I was a fan of him, he had a banned TED Talk called The War on Consciousness. And if you ever get the chance to watch it, it's a great one. I don't know if you can still find it. But he talked about also too the hyper productivity and the workaholism that's placed upon us as well.
That's another addiction, dude, that people don't even realize. Like, workaholic is an addiction. Going to the gym can be an addiction. Shopping is an addiction. Gambling is an addiction. It's not even just drug addiction that is a problem. It's like there's so many other addictions that people don't even realize that they're even addicted to.
100%, man. And yeah, I mean, body dysmorphia is a real thing. I mean, people get like, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I'll be working out. And man, one of the things you got to do to beat that is, self-love, and just understand that you're being the best version of yourself. And, to compare yourself to anybody else, that's going to be the thief of joy, at least in that endeavor. But,
That sounds like a healthy addiction off the hook.
Yeah, off the hook, bro. Off the hook, man. But no, it is, man. And too, like when Graham was saying how we need these periods of productivity. We need these periods of creativeness. To explore our creative, faculties in our mind. Explore ourselves in that manner in order to be truly happy and healthy human beings. And that's something I'm still not seeing a lot of just quite yet. And that's why, I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary with the blue zones, where they talk about longevity. It's on Amazon Prime, if I'm correct. I got to think of the name of it and I'll get to you. But, they go to a lot of these blue zones around the world where they see these extreme cases of longevity, people living to be like 110, 120, like straight looking up, like almost a little bit older than you and I, still thinking straight, still walking, like all of their wits about them at 110, 120 years old, things like that. And one of their biggest things is their mentality on work that contributes to their longevity too. So they'll get up real early and they'll work from like 5 to noon. And then they'll take the rest of the day off. And they're allowed to, at that point, they're allowed to go, explore their creative pursuits, any kind of hobbies they might have. Or they can spend time with their family, whatever works for them. But this is kind of the way it's set up in these blue zones. And I personally think that's something we can take and use as a model in order to help kind of fix a lot of the mental health issues that we have in our society today. Because don't get me wrong, man, like hard work's good for you. It is. Like it builds discipline, it builds character. And, it helps you learn how to support yourself and be a self-sustainable human being. But it's all about balance. You know what I mean? And that's one thing we can say about a lot of things is a lot of things have fallen out of balance. So I was stoked here. They're doing it in Golden. They haven't implemented it Colorado wide, but they're testing out the 4-day work week in Golden, Colorado right now. And apparently it's getting really good feedback and really good results. And it's I'm like, okay, so when are we going to move it on to the rest of Colorado at this point? Because, we're seeing a lot of positive feedback from this test run on, people are happier, like they're getting more time to explore themselves, their relationships, their, creative pursuits, their hobbies in life. And they're more energized and ready to go to work when they go back to work because you just gave them that extra day off to where they could do all of that. Now they're like, okay, cool, man. Like I can go back and I can work harder now. I feel like I want to go to work and things like that, man. It's all about just, understanding the condition that we're in. And we're imposed by pretty much every single avenue that, we gotta dude, have you ever noticed that they literally put the most overworked, sick and tired people on a pedestal in this society. If this person worked 100 hours, bro, they're going to put you in a throne. They're going to give you a crown, dude, if anybody's ever worked 100-hour week, how brutally I've done it twice in this scope of my almost now 17-year career as an electrician. I've done it twice. And dude, you are fucked up after that. You're worthless. Yeah, you got all this money, but you're too fucking exhausted to fucking go do anything with it, or go spend it. But these are the people that they put on the pedestal, man. Oh, you
gotta be like this guy. You gotta work yourself to death every single week, bro.
100%, dude. And the other thing too is
go out and hand him a plaque. He's employee of the month.
Exactly, man. And then the other thing too is again, the organic instances is we and the humans in the collective. we perpetuate it, dude. We start bragging to each other about how many hours we worked. Oh, well, I worked, 70 hours last week. Oh, yeah, well, I worked 80. And it's like, it's this fucking pissing contest competition, when it comes down to, at least I mean, I've seen it in my line of work, and I've seen it in other people's lines of work too, man. It's like the more you work, like the better you are. Like, oh, you just worked a 40-hour week. Fuck you. Like, you ain't shit. That's a part-time job. And that's like the mentality with like a lot of people, when it comes to that, what we were talking about.
Yeah, especially in labor jobs. Like, that's the way that it goes, construction working and like, manual labor jobs. That's the type of rhetoric that you get. If you're not putting in at least 60 hours a week, then you're a loser.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, like, especially like, because before I got into being an electrician, I worked those fucking jobs. And, like, I'll tell you what, dude, you doing 60 hours a week, freaking as a mason, hauling fucking block, freaking hauling bags of gravel, wheelbarrows of cement, digging holes for 60 fucking hours a week, dude. Yeah, you're not going to be feeling too good after about a couple months of doing that. You're not. And the people that say they don't not feel good are fucking lying about it. they're fucking lying about it. They are. Like, dude, I'm in pretty good physical condition, but doing shit like that for 60 hours a week, bro, I'd be dead. Like, I'd be dead. So that's also too, man, like the rhetoric that kind of gets thrown around when it comes to that. And even that, I mean, dude, in the trades, bro, drug addiction's rampant. I can't tell you how many people that I've worked with, bro. I've walked in on my foreman and my super doing cocaine off a prints table. Okay, like freaking like a paper where they were reading blueprints. I walked in, saw it was a gun, immediately saw what was going on. I immediately said I saw nothing and turned around and walked the fuck out. Like, I was like, holy shit. Like, did I just see that? But like, it is, man. It gets, even alcohol, like, alcohol, even, going back to Graham Hancock's band TED Talk. This society tolerates drunkenness, but that's pretty much all it'll do. And it doesn't even tolerate it at at a level where, getting sloshed is acceptable. But, you want to go, I mean, dude, I can't tell you how many people, like, I've worked and, I'd be working on a job or I'm working on a homeowner's home. And they're like, you want a beer? I won't tell anybody. And I'm like, fucking looking, it's like fucking 11 o'clock in the morning. Like, dude, what? Like, no, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. And, but dude, that norm right there with alcohol. And that's the thing, man, for a lot of, recovering addicts who were addicted to alcohol. And I feel for them, dude, because the shit's in your face all the time. Like, it's
24/7. You get hit with commercials at the grocery store. You like people asking you to go out and do things.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's wild. Yeah, I feel really bad for them as well. And I think that is that type of industry has created the weekend warrior type of mentality. Can't wait until Friday so I can go drink and get smashed with my friends until Sunday. You know what I mean? It's created that kind of culture.
And dude, that ain't no way you want to live, man. For somebody who lived it and who did do that shit, man, that ain't no way you want to live, man. Because like it's just, yeah, instant gratification, dopamine releases. That's pretty much what you fill your weekend with, is instant gratification, dopamine releases. And like if you're having, I mean, I'm not a hater on sex, but if you're having promiscuous sex with all fucking kinds of people too, and all that, like, that's not good for you as well. I know some people might give me shit for saying that, but it is, and that's kind of what that's the lifestyle that a lot of these people live, man. They work freaking hard weeks. They go out and they get 8 balls and hookers and fucking bottles at the club Saturday and fucking the Martian hookers too. That's the upgraded level of hooker nowadays, I guess. But
ET prostitutes, dude, bro. They got a whole red light district on Mars, bro. You didn't know?
Dude, it's I'm telling you, bro, it's like that though, man. And it is. And I mean, and it is. All you're doing is pissing your life down the drain. And and as somebody who used to live it, I'll tell you that's what you're doing, man. Like, go outside. Like, you have 2 days off, go outside, go spend time in nature. Like, or go do something you haven't done before. You haven't kayaked, you haven't paddleboarded, or you haven't rode the mountain coaster in Estes fucking Park, which I highly suggest all of you do. It's fun as shit. But I mean, you haven't done any of that stuff. Like, go do something you haven't done, man. Like, go crave experience, go crave life. I mean, I know if it's tough, because you feel so exhausted, but dude, get yourself up and do it. You'll thank yourself for it, and it'll get you out of the swing of living that way. It truly
Bro, we have all of the information in the world at our fingertips. How anybody is bored is beyond me. How is anybody bored? You should never be bored. We have never lived in a time like this in the history of the world. Never has it ever been like this, and people should embrace that and just research, look into something, whatever tickles your fancy, look into it and figure it out. I mean, you have literally all of it at your fingertips. We no longer have to go to a library to learn something new. We don't have to go to a library and read, and we can't find it. And then we ask the librarian, and then the librarian says, "Oh, maybe it's over there." And then you spend 3 or 4 hours looking for the thing that you want to find out. You no longer have to hope that somebody knows about something. You can just look it up now.
I joke like this because, like, even with like spiritual reading material, like I kind of use the same analogy. It's not like back in the old days where you had to get on a boat voyage that would like last a month, and then like you'd get to the plateau, then you had to hike up this giant 20,000 foot tall peak just to get to this monastery, just to look at this one like scroll, or just to look at this one book. Like, you're absolutely right, man. We have we live in a day and age where we have all of this at our fingertips. And, and I agree with you. I don't understand how other people could be bored, especially doing what we do. And I mean, it's all about, though, I think it also destroys the will of human beings. Like, I mean, we look at, there's a huge mental thing that takes place, with a lot of stuff, or a lot of what I would call the scientific theories in the mainstream. I mean, there's a psychological effect. I mean, you tell people that, when I'm not disagreeing with this, I mean, this very well could be the case, but this is what it does to a population mentally. You tell people that they're on this little tiny blue rock floating through this abyss, and their existence is coincidental and by chance. And you sit there and you make this the norm. You make this what a lot of people think. And what this does is this kind of plays on the psychological faculties of the human being. And you have almost this rise of nihilism, which, we all go through our nihilistic phase. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's a phase, though. Like, you buy a plane ticket there, or you buy a timeshare there. You don't stay there. Like, you go visit, and you're like, cool. Like, this was okay. I needed this. I'll move on to the next thing. But you don't buy a home there, and you don't, at least in my opinion. But what that does, man, is it causes this rise of nihilism, and I almost call it it's almost like a negative form of it. Like, because nihilism can have a positive aspect to it, don't get me wrong, but it's almost like a negative form of it, and it causes the mentality of people, like, well, like, I don't have to, my life is meaningless, or my life is by coincidence or by chance. I don't need to live it the way people are telling me to, or the way that I should feel. And that's also something that we encounter today. We have almost this negative form of nihilism that's kind of started to showcase itself in people, which could definitely explain, if that is what's going on, a lot of these behaviors that people are experiencing as well.
I agree. Absolutely. Nihilism has become a really big quality within the community. I've spoken about it so many times, and it's really wrecked people's a way of bettering anything or creating a positive outcome for everything, because it's all just we should just give up and not do anything. Like things are going to happen no matter what. Like the cabal is going to come in and do whatever they want. Like no, that's not the way that it works. Like, but that's really hit the community hard. But I think this is a really good point to wrap it up. Thanks so much, Stephen. Appreciate your time this evening.
Absolutely, man.
Can you let people know where to find you online?
Absolutely, man. So as Ryder is, I am also a member of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. You guys can check out everybody on there. We have a lot of great shows at www.forbiddenknowledge.news. Check out the documentary Occult Louisiana. Check out JFKX and check out Clockwork Shining when it comes out also, guys. And you not only can you find me there, you can find me on every major podcast platform under BGcast. You can find me on Rumble, YouTube, and X as under BGcast. And you can find me on Facebook and IG, although I'm letting my IG die. So Facebook and X are where I'm most active at this point in time. If you want to reach out and say what's up. Other than that, Ryder, it's a pleasure being on your show for the first time, man. I think we had a really great conversation. And
appreciate it. I would like to talk to you longer, but I really got to freaking pee, dude. I think it flowed really well.
It's okay. I got to get to bed. I totally understand.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for being here in the chat. Really appreciate each and every one of you guys. Tim, Off the Hook, F Kitty, Fireflies in the Lighthouse, Tim, Nina, Oak Tree, and all the other people that contributed in the chat earlier. Thank you. Appreciate you. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel in the algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. The links to Stephen's information is in the description of this video. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.